Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers, also the owner and operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events. And welcome to this podcast in which we delve deep into the bowels of horror from all different decades, all different subgenres, everything that touches upon the genre itself in order to give you a greater appreciation and deep dive in some of the films that you may have seen already, may have never seen, or just need another refresher course before you rewatch them again. And we want to thank our hosts, our special guest hosts who always come in every week, and they kind of add to some of the flavors and to the conversations that I have about these films. This being part of our special month of episodes focusing on films on or based upon the works of Stephen King, it's going to be a great month. It's going to be some great conversations. And for today's conversation, I've enlisted the aid of Dave Watkins to return to the show to talk about Silver Bullet. Thank you so much, Dave, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's Silver Bullet's a pretty good Stephen King one too, from 1985.
From 1985. So this is one of the the 80s movies, and there is a great fondness for 80s movies, and we're gonna see how fond our memories are or our appreciation is for this 80s movie, which as surprisingly has never been remade like a lot of King works are currently being done. So
I thought, now you'd mentioned that, I'm thinking it doesn't feel like an 80s film when you're watching it. It actually feels like a much earlier time period almost. You don't feel like I don't feel like when I'm watching it, this is the 80s sort of thing.
well, because of the small town that it takes place in, I can agree with you on that. And the fact that it's told from the point of view of one of the kids as she's older, recollecting her
Right.
past. It's
Kind of
much
got it,
more
yeah.
interesting. It reminds
Kind
me
of
of
got
Stand
that.
by Me.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Stand by Me. Yeah, I can see that. And Stand by Me is based on The Body by Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to say kind of a Christmas story, but not really. It reminds me of the Christmas story, maybe the narration part a little bit. But really, though, if you talk about Stand By Me is a closer version because it is also narrated by the Gordy character. Because in the film, Richard Dreyfuss plays him in the beginning and the end of it. So, but
Yeah.
you don't see her as an adult in this one. You only hear her narration.
Isn't that, yeah, that's very interesting that you mentioned that out because when I rewatched it, I remembered that I was like, oh wait, we never see her, we just hear her. I haven't seen this movie nearly as much as I've seen like Stand By Me and a lot of other Stephen King films. I remember really liking this one more than I actually liked the book. I'm not a big fan of Cycle of the Werewolf. I just thought it was an okay book by King. I thought the
Yeah,
movie
it's
was
more of
much
a
better.
yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, yeah. I think that's interesting about the book that was actually started as a calendar. You heard about that before?
No, I have not heard about that one.
Yeah. So someone enlisted Stephen King. Their idea was like they wanted to have a calendar for every month and have a werewolf. Like it was basically a picture of a werewolf on the calendar and some kind of backstory behind it. So he made like 12 like short little stories about the calendar, and every month, you would see it. And those are kind of the stories that of the small town and a werewolf that comes out every month and kills people, and they how the stories are intertwined. Eventually including the kid in the wheelchair, Marty, and who's the hero of the story. But he was included also. But in the cycle, the werewolf came after the calendar. They basically took the calendar and then they kind of made the stories longer. And the first time I read Cycle of the Werewolf, I remember it very well. I went to this library in town, and I found the book. It was it wasn't the regular novella. It was like a big hardback copy of it, and it had the pictures they're drawn by a famous comic book artist in there. But the pictures look great, and I was very intrigued by the whole thing. It is kind of as you were saying, it does feel very episodic,
Mm-hmm.
but I think they do a good job of pulling those. They do a good job of pulling that into this film without making it as mundane as every month, because they don't show every month as they do in the calendar or the novella.
No, 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 they don't. And but the ideal in the movie is that you get without them always just blatantly telling you time passes. Time does pass in here. Over the course of probably a year. Now that you mentioned the whole calendar thing. Um,
But it's yeah, I mean that's the way it's written in the book. But I think they do skip some stuff because I mean the book starts earlier in the year and it ends in December, so it ends at Christmas, where this one ends at Halloween.
yeah.
The Halloween is in the book. In the book, like that's when the kid first finds out who the werewolf is because he's trick or treating and he has a mask on, and that's how he discovers who the werewolf is on Halloween night. But it's kind of it doesn't do that. It ends on Halloween. It begins, I think, on the 4th of July or something like that.
Right
They
before
have yeah, yeah, they have a 4th of July, like kind of. Is it 4th of July or is it another holiday at the beginning when they're celebrating?
it's a different holiday that you're celebrating, I believe.
I,
But
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah. Because 4th of July is with the fireworks later in the movie, but the first one must be I don't even know what it is. It's some other holiday at the very beginning because they're having like a parade and stuff and a
mhm.
town gathering.
Well, that and that's and you bring up one good aspect of the film. When I rewatched it, I really liked is that over the course of the film, you see that very first scene where the town has having that celebration, and the town is full of people. But by the time you get to Halloween, and when the stuff really gets towards the last part of the film, a lot of people have left the town. You've seen the streets they're empty. You see people are all leaving because of the massacre that happens later in the film.
But
And
they may not have left. They might just be hiding. I mean, I would not go out myself, but I guess leaving would probably be better when the
but
full moon comes. Get out of town. You know, saying
well, you do see the one you see the one family with their truck filled with stuff and leaving the town as after Marty and his family go to the fair and the fair has been canceled. They
right.
drive through the town. The town looks completely deserted except for this one vehicle who have packed all their stuff and are going in the opposite direction. Um, it's it's kind of it's an interesting story, Silver Bullet. I will get to the what the Silver Bullet means for those who haven't seen it because it has a double meaning. But the
Right.
ideal of having a film about a werewolf who essentially comes out at a full moon and kills people, but he has a very specific reason why he's killing these people, which I didn't realize as a kid when I saw this film. I only realized
Yeah.
that when I rewatched it for our podcast that he actually says a reason why he's killing them, and you get that.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of a hilarious like kind of way of it's the
Motivation.
way of yeah, basically he's a werewolf and he's kind of coming up with a reason why he's doing it and the justification of why he doesn't just kill himself or end the whole thing in a way or let people know and try to get help. So he thinks he's on like a crusade or something like that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did not see that at all when I was a kid. I just kind of thought the Silver Bullet, which I will say is the Silver Bullet is actually Marty's wheelchair, the souped up wheelchair that his uncle Red builds him and then improves upon later in the film because he has a simplified one at the beginning of the film that he uses, and then he gets a souped up one later.
Yeah. And Uncle Red being played by Gary Busey in pretty awesome way too. He's
You know,
great.
he's
Yeah.
really good in this movie. I
Yeah.
rewatched it, and he's still really good in this movie. Um,
Right. I think a lot. I mean, I think a lot of the acting's really good in the film, but Gary Busey definitely steals every scene that he's in,
mhm.
playing the uncle who's kind of a wild card uncle. And there's a really good scene earlier in the film. One thing that the film improves upon the book is really focusing on the Marty character earlier on. In the
Yeah,
book, he doesn't show up until the 4th of July, which is pretty far into it.
yeah,
But here shows it right away, and it follows his character and his sister, and then his uncle, Uncle Red, Gary Busey shows up, and he's kind of a drunk uncle. He's just gone through a divorce. He's kind of depressed, but then there's a scene where he's talking to his sister, which is Marty's mom, and they're kind of she's telling him off. He shows up, and he's kind of the hero uncle. He comes in and is the hero, but then he's getting drunk, and they're playing cards, and then she kind of tells him off, and then he's like. It seems like everybody's kind of putting down on Marty because he's in a wheelchair and he's kind of a I guess it's kind of a crutch for everybody that they have to take care of him. But then the uncle, who is just kind of swoops in there. But then I don't know. But it's a great scene though between him and the sister, and
It is.
and
Well, it remind it, I won't say it reminds me of anything, but I want to say that there was a lot of care taken to each of the characters in here, because you essentially have, and I don't think we ever told how Marty became a cripple. It's just part of, like, he's almost been that way his entire life.
yeah, I think that's the case. I think he has always been that way.
Yeah, because I was trying to remember in the book if they said anything, but I don't remember. It's been a while since I read the book.
Yeah.
Because I haven't reread any of King's books in a long time. I just try and catch up with the new stuff as fast as he writes it.
Yeah.
But that's one of those details where you think they're going to actually explain everything, explain why he's a cripple, and because it's such an integral part to his character and to the story overall. Because, and this is what they do really well. I can't remember who directed this, but they do really well with visuals. You see
Director's name's Dan Addis, Atties. But this is about the only film he directed. But I'll get back to him in a minute. Go ahead.
But there's a lot of great scenes where you see Marty's limitations and how he envies people who actually are not crippled. Like the very first scene you see with him and Brady, Brady climbs up in the tree to scare Marty's sister, Janie, and he can't stop his best friend from doing what he's doing. He wishes he could, and he feels really guilty about it. And then, of course, later on in the film, him and his sister are having all these conversations where she's always picking on him and saying that the entire family is taking his side because he's a cripple. And it's one of those weird things where Marty would be the character who wouldn't want people to acknowledge that he's a cripple. It's just something he's had to deal with, and he's, that's why he loves his Uncle Red. His Red doesn't see him as a cripple. His uncle just sees him as a normal kid with a lot of dreams.
Yeah. And yeah, and it's a really good. It's not necessarily a healthy relationship between the two of them, but it's very interesting the way that it's good that his uncle treats him in that way. But his uncle's also is an alcoholic, and he also soups up his wheelchair in an unsafe way, and then he gives him fireworks later on. But he's just a caring uncle, and he's just trying to be. He's trying to help him and not treat him like he's a cripple.
Yeah.
By the way, that Corey Haim plays, which we didn't mention, that he plays the Marty character, and he's about 12 years old when he's doing it, and he's very charismatic and very likable in the part.
Well, that's what carried Corey Haim for a lot of his career. His charismatic way of portraying characters, from everything from Lucas to this to freaking Lost Boys. He was really good at doing that.
Right, very very likable, and he definitely was. He sold it, and even I mean, I really believe that. I never believed that he wasn't paraplegic, and he had to do some things like climb out of a tree. It's like, things to that nature without using his legs. So it's pretty impressive they were able to pull some of that stuff off.
Yeah, we don't know how many takes they had to do it where Corey Haim was saying, damn it, I moved my foot again.
Yeah, I hope it was just one take, because he comes out of the chair and just drops into the wheelchair with the help of the sister. So I'm hoping that was one take.
Well, you get the idea that he's done this a lot. Even when we see him where he's partially climbed up the tree to grab the kite right before before Brady gets killed, he's up in the tree himself getting his own kite, while Brady's there just flying his kite, completely oblivious to Marty in the tree.
He seems to really like to get up in trees, which is an odd thing for somebody who can't use their legs. He's having to use all his arm strength to get up in there. I think he'd have like huge muscles or something.
So some of the things for people who have never seen Silver Bullet, obviously the format's a little different than you might be expecting, but the way the film rolls is that it also has kind of a mystery aspect to it for a good portion of the film before you realize who the actual werewolf is. I don't remember my reaction to that when I first saw it, because I was too young to actually kind of see that in my head.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was about to say, but now I think they did a good job hiding who the werewolf was until they actually do the reveal, because that scene right before the big the massacre of the people, the townspeople who go out looking for the monster or looking for the killer in the woods. You see Everett McGill trying to stop everybody from going out there because he knows there's a huge posse going out there to meet their deaths. Um, but you never suspect him of being the person who's the werewolf at that point.
So Everett McGill, he's a he's obviously I'm a fan of his. He's in Twin Peaks and Dune. You know, he's a one of David Lynch's kind of go-to actors. But he plays big Ed Hurley in Twin Peaks, which is pretty awesome that he's in this film as well. He'd already done Dune when he did this film, but he hadn't done Twin Peaks yet. But the actor, he also plays the werewolf too when he's in werewolf form, which is they had someone else originally doing it, but the producers didn't like the way that it was like I think a dance person. They had to, and they didn't like the way he was doing it. So Everett McGill's like, I'll just do it, you know. And so he plays the werewolf probably 95% of the time on screen.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, so he gets second billing in the opening credits after Gary Busey because Corey Haim wasn't well known. He's 12 years old, but people kind of knew Everett McGill at the time.
And you know what? I maybe I don't know. I don't think I was aware of who Everett McGill was until I saw him in People Under the Stairs, and then I went back and said, "Oh, I've seen this guy before." And then I went back and saw some of the other stuff he'd done, and I came to Twin Peaks late. I did not watch Twin Peaks when it originally aired. I came to that movie really late, or the show really late. So
yeah, I did too, but I really was a big fan of it. I think I probably saw this before seeing Twin Peaks. I did recognize them already though from something else. It's probably Dune, but
yeah, I'd seen Dune a lot. Yeah. I'd seen Dune a lot. I'd seen, and that was before I saw People Under the Stairs. But I loved them in People Under the Stairs, and that made me go back and say, "Who the hell is this actor?" And of course, I'd recognize. I'd go back and see Silver Bullet and say, "Oh shit, he's in Silver Bullet." And then, of course, after that, he just was a character actor in a lot of stuff. But you're right, he did show up in some David Lynch's films.
Yeah, but you know what they do though with that character, they don't really focus on him very much in the movie until he's revealed. He's kind of when the first time you see him, he's at that first event they're having. He comes out on stage and starts to talk, and they don't even cut to a close up of him or anything. It's just a wide shot. He goes up there, starts to talk, it cuts away from him. It doesn't even really focus on him. It doesn't make a big deal about the character. And then later on, you see him in that scene you're talking about out when he goes after the cars, and then he does a few sermons. When he's revealed that he's the werewolf, I think that it's they do one sermon after one person gets killed, and then they have a nice little bit in there where Gary Busey's character takes out like a flask and he goes to drink out of it and then changes his mind and puts it back in his pocket, so he's kind of changing his ways. But that establishes the sermon thing, and then the next time somebody else dies, you see the sermon again, and it ends up being a dream sequence. And everybody everyone in the crowd there starts turning into werewolves, and then Everett McGill's character, the Reverend Lowe, wakes up and he's sweating. You know, that's kind of where it's kind of revealed he's the werewolf. I think I don't think it's revealed all the way, but you kind of at that point you got a pretty good idea who it is.
Yeah.
I think when I read the book, it was surprising to me. I was pretty young at the time. It was pretty surprising to me because they don't establish the character very good, but just the fact that the werewolf was a reverend, it was kind of at the time when I first read the story, it seemed like a pretty unsuspecting person to be a werewolf. But it actually makes sense because he goes on a trip like you would go with a church. You know, they always send him off to Africa or wherever they go, or Australia. He went to some place like that, and then he ended up in a cave sort of situation and got bit by a werewolf. And that's how he got it from that, because they always go on, you know how they always go on those trips and they come back and talk about it, the missions, and they come back and they talk about it. But it makes sense that a reverend would it was similar like that show Midnight Mass too. A similar thing happened to that reverend on that show. Did you see that?
Not yet. It's on my list.
But similar thing happens though. It's like very it makes sense in the context of how like a reverend could contracted because they would be more likely than most other people to be in a place like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's it's actually good that they don't reveal any of that in this in the film, because the way they do it is like he's the new reverend in town, and just people just don't know a whole lot about him right now. And that's what we learned from when Janie's searching around the town and looking. And this is one of the scenes I really liked about this. This is how you realize just how close knit the town is after Marty is attacked by the werewolf on the bridge while he's trying to light off fireworks. He gets home driving the silver bullet as fast as he can, and he's terrified. And that's the first, after that, the first moment that we have where the brother and sister, Janie, his sister, get together and they have this heart to heart, is that she's the only person that he can go to tell her what he saw, because he knows grown-ups and Red wouldn't believe him. He tells Janie about the werewolf, and then Janie comes up with this brilliant idea to just go around the entire town collecting cans and bottles, and also look for someone who has a missing eye, because Marty shot the werewolf that night or the previous night in the eye with fireworks, a bottle rocket.
Yeah,
which is really cool
scene. Yeah, it's a cool sequence, and it's cool in the book too, because it switches up the format. Because before that, every month a different person's getting killed, and when you got to that month, instead of somebody getting killed, the werewolf gets shot in the eye with a firework, you know.
So,
but yeah, but it's I do like the relationship between Marty and the sisters. There's some very tender moments between the two characters.
Yeah.
The Jane character and her name's Jane, the character, but I do like those moments. I like the antagonistic type of moments earlier, but then they do have like those tender moments when he goes and tries to apologize and things of that nature.
No. I think that's what makes those two characters so strong, is the fact that they're almost like real brothers and sisters. They have, whether Marty was in a wheelchair or not, there's this little animosity between siblings like that, and it's just made worse by the fact that he's in a wheelchair and she's older, and everyone takes up his side, and she likes to just blame it because he's a cripple.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's a great story aspect. It would have been a much different film if he was walking around.
Right. And I guess I don't know. I mean, I guess it still would have worked in a similar way, but it does add it adds a little bit of an interesting aspect to it. I know the first time I read it, and as a kid, when I was pretty young when I saw it, I thought that was pretty cool that he was in a wheelchair. But if he wasn't in a wheelchair, I guess it would still work. It would make some of the stuff even easier to do. But I think it's cool that he's in a wheelchair. Yeah, but I think it. But it's. I think. I don't know if. I think it would work just as well if he wasn't in it. But I think it's a cool aspect. It's a unique aspect to the story.
Well, we can go into the next aspect that makes this movie such an interesting movie, which is the actual silver bullet itself, which is a souped up wheelchair with like a real motorcycle motor in it that drives really fast.
Yeah, it drives as fast as a car. So
that's right. He does pass cars on the road.
And he's like 12 years old riding this thing. Well, I guess kids do that. They get on the four wheelers. It's a kind of similar situation, but
I guess you're right. Yeah. I kept thinking that was just a what they would do back in the day with parents is lax.
I got some kids riding around my neighborhood. I got kids riding around my neighborhood on four wheelers, man.
I see kids driving around with four wheelers too. Not my neighborhood, but I've seen them a lot. And I used to do that too when I was younger, and I lived up in. Everyone will get a laugh at this one. I lived up in Alaska. I used to drive four wheelers and three wheelers all the time, and I was fucking young back then. That's how we got around.
Right.
You know,
but I guess, even though that. It's bad though, because he can't walk. So if something happens to this, if something happens that runs out of gas or whatever, he's kind of screwed, you know, because he can't walk. Because he have to wheel it back. But which he actually runs into that situation on the bridge when the Reverend chases him in the car and runs him off the bridge, and he gets stuck inside that covered bridge, and the Reverend's about to come after him. Luckily, some guy on a tractor shows up, but he was in a bad situation at that point.
Well, yeah, he couldn't go any further forward, and he was almost out of gas as well. So yeah, so
Yeah.
but that is an interesting sequence. At that point, Everett McGill's character is almost vindictive now because he's coming after Marty. Is that the first time he comes after Marty as a human?
I think so. Yeah, that's when he comes after him, and then I think he actually reveals that he tries to justify his actions
Oh
by
yeah.
saying, yeah, that's when he tries to do it when he's saying that everyone he's killed had a reason. They were sinners in a way, and so they deserved it in some ways. And he was kind of being a messenger for God or whatnot. It's kind of how he's trying to justify killing these people as a werewolf.
So, what do you think about the werewolf in this film?
As far as like the so it looks a little bit like a bear sometimes, but I don't hate it though. I think it's an okay werewolf. And I think there's a transformation scene near the end that looks pretty good when he transforms. I don't
Uh,
know. What did you think about it?
so even when I originally saw the movie, I wasn't really that impressed with the werewolf
Yeah.
transformation. I was more impressed with the other aspects of the film. This is why it's been a long time since I've seen this film. Silver Bullet is like Christine. I don't really watch them that often. I enjoyed them when it came out, and maybe watched them a few times over the years, but they aren't like movies I go back to. I can't even I could not even tell you the last time I saw this movie. Um, but it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Uh,
I feel that with Christine. I actually have seen this one a pretty good amount of times. I think, but I do feel that with Christine. I did that one. That one's interesting, but it is not it is one that I haven't watched that many times. I think maybe I've seen it 3 times or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those early King adaptations that you watch, but you don't watch them a whole lot. For some odd reason, I saw Cujo and Children of the Corn a whole hell of a lot more times than I probably should have. But like this one and Christine, even though Christine is directed by John Carpenter, I just never really those movies just didn't really gravitate for me. It's like I like them, but they're not films that I would go back and rewatch a lot. Like I don't know what it is. Firestarter is another one. I saw it, and I don't
Yeah.
go back to watch it that often. I can't
Uh,
remember the last time I saw it.
yeah. I only seen Firestarter once. I think I've seen the scenes from it, and I never really watched it recently. But that one's not that good, really. I don't like that one very much. But I do like Drew Barrymore in it.
Oh, I
And
love Cat's Eye. I've seen
yeah,
Cat's Eye a
yeah,
shit ton of
yeah,
times.
yeah. But I like some of the casting in Firestarter is interesting, but like Martin Sheen's good in it, and Drew Barrymore, but George C. Scott's miscast pretty badly.
We
But
will.
he's great. He was a great actor, but he just I don't know what was up with that casting. That's a bad. I mean, it's a bad character in a creepy type of way. That character is almost like a molester too in a way, acting. But he's supposed to be Indian, and George C. Scott is acting like he's Indian, but he's really not. And it's pretty clear that he's not. So,
Well, if you watch the remake, they actually did that justice, but I didn't care for the remake at all. So
yeah. I started trying to watch the remake. Only got like maybe 15 minutes into it. I didn't really ever go back to finishing it. I wasn't digging it. I was having a hard time with it. So
yeah, so we'd have to say, and to be honest with you, of werewolf movies, unfortunately in the 80s I had my go-to with American Werewolf in London and Wolfen and The Howling, and this film just wasn't like it didn't meet my standards of
yeah,
those type of movies, and that could be why I just didn't watch it that often. Also, it's not like directed by John Carpenter or Mick Garris, or like I don't remember any other movies this director did.
well, I'm gonna tell you why that is. Because after this, I think this may be the only movie he directed. After this, he did TV shows and a lot of them. But
Mm.
some of the best TV shows ever, like Lost and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Wire, The Sopranos, Deadwood, a lot of HBO shows.
He Well, he probably went to the regular paycheck.
Yeah,
From my understanding on that is like doing a film is great, but unless you have successful films, then you don't
yeah.
keep. Yeah, it's hard to keep the
He's
next film going.
yeah.
Whereas on television, you can go in, shoot an episode here, 2 episodes there, move on to the next
Right.
show. So
But he actually said on the director's commentary, he said that he was offered other horror movies, but he passed them up. He didn't really feel like that genre wasn't really for him. He said that he enjoyed making the movie, but he didn't feel like that was he didn't want to be kind of pigeonholed into the horror genre. He really liked the family scenes more than the horror scenes, which shows in the film.
yeah, if that's really true, that would be why the family scenes are actually so well done. Like the barbecue sequence where Red comes out with a barbecue and shows Marty the silver bullet for the first time. I mean, you see all the family grabbing, sitting around the fire, making light chit chat. And those type of family scenes would probably be cut and left on the cutting room floor of a film nowadays, which is really sad.
I think, yeah, I think it's funny the way that they write the mom and the dad out of the climax of the film. Obviously, they can't be there for it, but it's funny the way that they leave for Halloween and they're not in the climax of it. Becomes like the uncle watching them that night, and when they're attacked by the werewolf in the final showdown.
Well, when they manipulate the parents into going off to a supposedly one vacation, yeah, for
That's
one
right. That's
night,
right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's that. Yeah, Red manipulates them.
Yeah. It was a good move though. Got him out of there. I guess they couldn't right because they had to try to shoot the werewolf. But I guess we need to talk about what the second meaning of silver bullet is.
So yeah. Oh, so yes, getting to the second meaning of silver bullet is it's the only rule of the werewolf lore that really is in this movie prevalently, because the Reverend can actually change to be a werewolf whether it's a full moon or not, from my understanding, because even when Terry O'Quinn's cop goes to the Reverend's place after he has suspects on the Reverend's not changed as a werewolf even though it's nighttime. He does it at will, which is kind of weird because sometimes you get the impression that because of the nightmare sequences and other things that he doesn't always have control. But then, of course, he says he's killing these people very specifically. So it's one of those strange things that I found on the rewatch of this film. I don't know.
I think that I think he maybe as it goes on, he's probably able to control it better in some instances. I think that the moon enhances is what he says, but they had to get out of the cycle of the werewolf from the original story because it was very inconvenient to him only change on full moons. So they had it so he could change at will for the script, to make the script move better, especially because you're talking about the sheriff comes in there and finds the evidence that he killed like the bartender guy, and then that's when he reveals himself as the werewolf to the sheriff, and yeah.
But all this was originally leading us to the second meaning of the silver bullet, which is the fact that the silver bullet was the only thing from like the werewolf lore that actually gets used in this film, because obviously this werewolf could get damaged when he's shot in the eye. He still has that wound. We don't get the sense that if you were to, I can't remember any of the other werewolf lore. He could change at will, as he's not controlled by his animal instincts completely when he's a werewolf, because he kills people with a purpose. So yeah, I think the silver bullet is like literally the only lore that is absolutely stuck to in here. And of course, Marty and Janie. Marty takes his medallion and Janie takes her silver cross to have it melted down to a silver bullet by an expert at making bullets that Red knows.
Yeah.
I like that scene with the guy who makes the bullet. This is my finest work.
Yeah. You could kind of tell that he knows what he's going to do with it. It kind of reminds me of the granddad in the law with the Lost Boys at the end. Yeah, it's
It
good.
does actually. It does. It does remind me of that now that you mentioned it. I was like, and those little aspects like there, I believe, make the film like they add something to this film that's not really in like other werewolf like films. And I didn't pick up on any of this as a kid because I just want to see people changing the werewolves and maul, kill other people.
Right.
Everyone knows I'm a monster kid, so if I can get some monsters killing and mauling people in the movie, I'll probably rewatch it.
Yeah, it happens in this film. The first lady that's killed is a pregnant lady. Well, actually, the first guy that's killed is James Gammon, plays this guy on the train tracks. He gets his head cut off. But I guess, but the one lady that's killed is a pregnant lady. She takes a bunch of sleeping pills to kill herself. So that's what the werewolf targets her. But when he kills her, he rips her to shreds, and it shows some of it.
Yeah.
Apparently, the director said that the producers made him add that in. He said that they shot it without all that ripping the shreds part, and then they had to go back and shoot a bunch of inserts for the scene to make it more graphic.
Oh, okay. Because I will add this that werewolf gets around in this movie because that werewolf for that sequence is climbing to the second floor of that house to get into the house. I don't know if I realized that until I rewatched it.
Werewolves can climb.
Yeah, but this werewolf isn't like killing random people in the woods and shit. This one systematically goes up to this house, jumps through the window, kills her, jumps out before her mother comes back. And then, of course, Tammy's father, the drunk, who belittles Corey Haim's Marty because he sees him as a cripple and a drain on future society. He gets killed in his greenhouse, but he doesn't get killed normal either. He gets pulled through the bottom of the greenhouse. Like, is there that much room underneath this greenhouse for that werewolf to hide?
Yeah, I know it. But I guess that's an abusive father too. But
yeah,
he they do a good job of not showing the werewolf for a long period of time and building the suspense of seeing the werewolf.
Oh yeah,
I think the first time you see it, kind of good was when he gets shot in the eye with a firecracker.
Mm-hmm.
But then eventually you start to see him a lot better. That scene when the church congregation turns into werewolves, the werewolves look pretty good in that scene. They look a little different than the main werewolf.
Yeah. Well, I think they have a little fun with that one. They get everybody changes to werewolves, which is why that's such a fun sequence to watch. But the other scene that I really liked was when all the townspeople go out in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, with that fog.
To search for the killer. And then, of course, in this fog bank.
Yeah, right.
Some of them get picked off one by one. I didn't realize that they don't actually tell the audience how many people get killed.
Right.
Which there's a lot of people in that scene, but you see so many of them run, and you only see a handful of them actually get killed.
Yeah, I don't think that many of them actually get killed. I think it may be 3 or 4 of them. I know that the bartender gets killed for a fact because his bat, he beats him to death with it. But.
Yeah, and in that dream sequence, there's 3. I only noticed this for the first time when I was rewatching. Yeah. There are 3 coffins in there, so I get the assumption that there was 3 people who were killed. When you kind of think that there might be a lot more.
Right. I think when in the scene you only see 3 people really get killed, so I think that's because, and you see some of the people who run off, you see them again later, so they survived it. What happens before that? What instigates that scene and that the Brady kid getting killed is a pretty effective sequence. He's out flying that kite, and his dad comes and finds him. You see the kite with the blood all over. It's a good performance by the actor playing his dad. And then he goes back, and he's the one that gets them all riled up in the bar. He shows up in there and gets them riled up.
Yeah, that actor has some good speeches because that when he talks down Terry O'Quinn's cop or sheriff, I was like, damn, that's a good speech. And I would have never realized that when I was a kid. I only realized it when I did the rewatch. I was like, whoo, that's a powerful speech he gives. He tells that cop off. And then Terry O'Quinn is like, okay, I'm just gonna stand over here. You guys do what you want to do. And then everyone leaves.
Right. Yeah. It don't end too good for them, but yeah, it's funny. There's like that one actor, Bill Smith, which he's playing one of the guys who's more aggressive than the other ones, and he kind of calms down after that fog scene. After that, he's kind of sidelined, but he kind of is like, okay, I'm done. I'm done like going after werewolves, you know.
Yeah, I've seen that actor in a lot of other stuff, but I just recognized him when he was in this movie. I was like, oh yeah, oh there's Terry O'Quinn too. I don't remember Terry O'Quinn being in this movie. I was like, shit.
Yeah. I recognized him when I saw it before. I think I was aware of the film The Stepfather with him in there, and so like I knew him from that, and then so when I saw him in this when first time I saw it, I thought that was pretty cool that they had the actor playing the stepfather.
I came to the Stepfather movies late too, much later than when they came out. I think I saw like the third one first, and then eventually went back to the other ones. I know Terry O'Quinn from Lost and from Millennium. That's how I learned about Terry O'Quinn, and then everything else started to snowball backwards for me.
Yeah,
so that's why
he's a great actor,
recognize him.
Yeah, he's a great actor. I really like his performances. He's a really charismatic guy.
Yeah. But you know, this is just one of those films where I almost wish I had a greater appreciation of it growing up. I probably would have seen it more often, but I didn't. Because watching it now, there's a lot of great things about this film that, you know, I hope people recognize, but I don't know how much this film is actually talked about, actually. You know, I don't, when we talk about werewolf films, Silver Bullet is not always one of the top 5 that people mention for me.
Yeah, right. And I'm not sure why that is. I think it has a lot of good aspects to it. I think there's not like that many really good werewolf films to me. There's maybe 10, and I would definitely put this in those 10 good ones. You know, like the ones you mentioned, of course, and then this one, and you know, Ginger Snaps,
Dog Soldiers, and you know.
Yeah.
I think we had a conversation about this earlier. There just isn't a whole lot of memorable and successful werewolf films, and we don't know why that is.
Well, I think they're just expensive. It's hard to make a realistic werewolf, and they're expensive. The practical werewolf effects are expensive and hard to do. Yeah. It's hard to make it look right. What I saw recently is a new one called Werewolves. Actually, was pretty good.
Oh, I still have to see that one. I have not seen that one yet.
It's pretty good. You probably like it. It kind of is like The Purge, but with werewolves in it.
Isn't that the one with Frank Grillo in it?
Yeah, he's in the Purge films too. He's in 2 of them. It really reminds me though of like I feel like that was the pitch. Like imagine The Purge, but instead of like killing the neighbors, everybody turns into a werewolf. Everybody that goes out and sees the moon, then they'll turn into a werewolf. So you have to be in your house without being able to see the moon to not be a werewolf.
Oh my god, I can't wait to see it. I'll figure out which streaming service is on so I can go watch it. Oh my god.
I think that.
Okay, so now we're getting to the last act of the film. We've mentioned a little bit of it, where Red's character has finagled the parents out of the house, and of course Marty and Janie and Red all believe that they're going to get attacked by the werewolf or the Reverend on Halloween night, because that's when the moon will be at its fullest, and it's the most logical time for them to get attacked. So they've got this whole thing set up with the silver bullet in hand, one silver bullet, mind you, to do away with the werewolf. And this is where another one of those crazy sequences come through, because Janie sees the werewolf first, and then Red goes to look. He doesn't see the werewolf through the window at all. He thinks Janie's a little crazy. So he takes a little silver bullet out of the gun, thinking, okay, it's time to go to bed. And then all of a sudden, the werewolf just comes through the wall. Not through a window, not through the door, but straight through the wall.
Yeah. That's how you do it right there. Nobody's expecting the werewolf to come through the wall like that, you know.
Forgotten that, dude.
Yeah. Oh, they drop the silver bullet, and there's like that whole trying to get it back, you know.
Yes, but I had forgotten the werewolf just came through a wall. So when I rewatched it, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. It's a cool end sequence, and when
It's a cool
yeah,
sequence. It
yeah,
is, even though it's kind of ludicrous, like the other two sequences I said for the death scenes. That is a
yeah,
really cool scene. The werewolf comes to the wall, scares the shit out of Red. Gary Busey does this really great looks and performance where he can't believe his eyes, and then he gets
right.
tossed through the house like a rag doll by the werewolf.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he
Oh
gets
my
thrown across
god!
the room. Yeah, it's I
Well,
think
it's an
apparently
exciting end. I will say this is not one of those films that doesn't have an exciting end. It has an exciting end to it. It has a exciting end to the werewolf, and even Everett McGill's Carrie moment where you think he's dead, but he does that one last gasp to
yeah,
shock everyone. And then they have this tender moment between Janie and her brother, where they tell each other they love each other, because they finally come to terms with their relationship. So it's not so antagonistic like it was at the very beginning. It's like, oh, they defeated
right.
the
Yeah,
werewolf and had a tender moment.
yeah,
And
this
Red's
yeah,
just like, shit, werewolves exist.
yeah, right.
Because
Yeah,
he doesn't
funny.
say anything. He's like, werewolves
Yeah,
exist. He's like stuck.
yeah,
Oh,
it's good. I remember seeing like when they shoot the werewolf and he turns back into the guy. I guess this is one of my earlier probably werewolf films, seeing something like that. I thought it was cool that he turned back into the guy. Obviously, it's done like 100 times now, but at the first time I saw it, I was like, I think that may have been the first time for me seeing something like that, you know?
I wish I could remember when I first saw this movie, but I don't. Unfortunately, these movies I didn't see at the theater, so I don't have a fond remembrance of when I first saw them. This
Right.
film, the other movies we mentioned like Firestarter, Cujo, all of them. I don't remember when I actually saw those movies because I didn't see them at the theater. So I thought it just kind of they're movies I grew up on.
Right.
And I once I got older, I just didn't watch them again because we have streaming services and everything else now. There's too much shit to watch now. I
Yeah.
think back then we were much more innocent in the 80s. There wasn't nearly as much static taking up our time. We had a
Yeah.
certain amount of movies released every year at the theater, and then there was a certain amount of channels on our television sets, not like today. So I think the static and all the chatter between all the streaming services and everything like that makes films like these simply disappear if they're not fondly remembered by horror fans like us. So.
Well, I will say though that I've got a 4K release of it from Scream Factory, so I think that they kind of a lot of times when they were release a film like this on 4K and upgrade, they do a new upgrade of the quality of the film, and it looks a lot better than you're used to seeing it. I
Mhm.
think it kind of piques a new interest in it. I've seen when I got it, I've seen a lot of people who do remember the film, and they like seeing the updates of it. So sometimes it's like a lot of times I prefer watching a film like this than the newer films because you get like the newer films are going to have some ridiculous CGI probably. Unlike Werewolves had a little bit of CGI in it, but they did go practical for the most part.
It's
But
I'm trying to think of any practical werewolves nowadays other than like dog soldiers because
yeah,
even when they did American Werewolf in Paris that was CGI and Bad
what?
Moon was CGI and
Yeah, Van Helsing was too.
oh Van Helsing
Yeah,
even the Underworld films they use a
yeah.
combination of it though. um
I think it's hard to do.
it
It's
is.
hard to do practically. It is. I mean, you almost have to use some CGI, especially when they're moving, to make them look like they're really moving. But then it makes it look fake because you're using CGI. So it's kind of a catch-22.
It is. You have to be a small little film like
Yeah,
Ginger Snaps or Dog Soldiers to really pull it off like that.
yeah. They always like in the Dog Soldiers, like they do a good job of lighting it in a way with a bunch of smoke and all this, so they're kind of obscured. They look cool, but then they don't show them like they show them pretty good, but they're always obscured by something, whether it be smoke or darkness or something.
Yeah.
That's the best way of doing it. Kind of make it so you see them, you think you see them, but you're not seeing them that good, you know?
That's why it'll be interesting to see how Lee Winnell's Wolfman turns out. I still haven't seen that one. I'd like to see how he tackles that since he is CGI for Invisible Man and Upgrade were so well done. How much practical versus CGI he does for Wolfman. I don't know because I didn't want to know anything about the movie before seeing it. I'm still waiting to just see it so I can experience it without any.
Right. Yeah. I think I didn't read anything about it specifically. I think from what I read, I just went to peek and see what the rating was. It seems like it's got a pretty good like critic rating. They seem to like they like it, and the audience seems to be liking it, even though it's not necessarily doing all that well. But it did have a low budget, so
Yeah.
I would. They originally were going to make a real big to do out of that film and cast somebody like really famous. Like it was, who was it going to be? I don't even remember who. It may have been that. It was somebody famous that were really well known. They originally had like a bunch of people, like Johnny Depp and a whole bunch of other people. They were going to. I think they're going to have Johnny Depp was supposed to be the Invisible Man.
That was the original monster universe
Yeah.
that they were trying to sell with like Angelina Jolie as the Bride of Frankenstein. And yeah, I remember all those rumors. And of course, unfortunately, Tom Cruise's The Mummy did not do nearly as well as expected, and it kind of crashed the bird. Dark universe. Universe.
But it wasn't even a rumor though. They actually got all those actors in a room and took a picture of them together. Like they were gonna do it. And then that Mummy like screwed up the whole. Well, I'll start with The Mummy. That's what
because the Mummy movies were always popular with audiences. The Brandon Fraser one.
That's true. But I thought it was an odd choice though in this one, especially when they went. I don't even know what they were doing with it. They didn't know either. It was it had some good stuff in it, but then it kind of went off the rails.
It was a mixture of a Mummy movie and American Werewolf in London, with the fact that the dead person was still there. And I only ever saw it once. I like certain sequences in it. I actually would have loved to have seen Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde more.
Yeah, I like Russell Crowe in it too.
But I thought, like you, was like, this is an odd movie.
Yeah. They kind of shoehorned Russell Crowe's character, Dr. Jekyll, into it. They were trying to make it like an Avengers of monsters. They're trying to make a universe like that, which I kind of like it a little bit, but you can't do it that way. Kind of, it just what didn't work. It was like they were trying too hard to make them connect.
You can. It'll be called the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
You're right. Which I even like. I think League of Extraordinary Gentlemen could work as well as long as it's done right. But that's kind of a cool idea. But if
they followed the comic book like they should have done, it would have been brilliant. But they didn't do that. But we got off topic there. We went from fucking werewolf movies to League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Any other words about Silver Bullet for everybody?
No, I think I said what I need to see so far on it.
Okay, so I would like to say this about Silver Bullet. Silver Bullet is one of those films that feels a little bit it's not dated. It's like of a more innocent time period is the best way to describe it. It's the childhood from the recollection of the main character from when she was younger with her younger brother, all those, and the monster, so to speak, which is a werewolf. It speaks of a much more innocent time, and if you've read a lot of the early Stephen King stories, like The Body and this and so on and so forth, you get that feeling. Even with Stephen King's It, when with the first part of the book, with the kids aspect, you get that feeling with this movie that might be lost in translation if they were to remake it, sadly.
Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was saying when I said it doesn't feel like an 80s movie, like, because it does have that, like you're saying, it does have more of a timeless type of feel to it, where it doesn't feel like these people are stuck in an 80s sort of mentality. It's very small town, and it basically feels like those other films like Stand By Me.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. And because it doesn't have like an old answering machine, or other technology that would get in the way, it retains that timeless quality. And of course, you have very solid performances by the entire cast, And of course, you get to see early works by Corey Haim and Gary Busey and Terry O'Quinn and Everett McGill and so on and so forth. So it's got a lot of great actors in the film. I just want people to realize that when you watch films like this, there are some great aspects to them, especially when in this climate nowadays, where some people might just see and hear the name Silver Bullet and just think of this as a really old 80s movie. And that's because there are so many 80s horror films that are both good and bad. And cult movies. So there's going to be a lot of films out there that people will have differing opinions on. So
yeah, I mean, I like the way they changed the title, kind of like they did with Stand By Me. They changed it from Cycle of the Werewolf, which would have been a big, too many words for a movie title, I guess, to Silver Bullet, which is 2 words in it. Some people might assume that it's about like the Coors or something in that Silver Bullet, like the beer. But I mean, it has a better kind of a ring to it, Silver Bullet, than Cycle of the Werewolf. Even though Cycle of the Werewolf does have werewolf in the title.
If they were to remake it, I guarantee you they'd call it Cycle of the Werewolf. Although I will say this probably would do good as a mini series where they can delve deeper into a lot more of the townspeople and get more into the story, and even with the priest Everett McGill's character as well. If they did like a mini series, I would say. So.
I would like a while back. I probably would have said that probably wouldn't have worked, but I've seen films like From Dusk Till Dawn done that way in that first season. It's basically the first season is the movie like in 10 episodes. So each episode is like 10 minutes of the movie, like stretched out to an hour. Somehow it works, and they make the characters better. Some of the characters anyway.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a great point. I think that they did a really good job with that show, because you wouldn't think that shit should be ever expanded into a full season of a show.
Yeah.
This one, it almost can write itself if you do it like the Cycle of the Werewolf. You could do different seasons for each episode and kind of stretch it out to, but that's not to say that anyone out there who's listening to this podcast should say, whoever owns the rights, go out there and make that television show right now, because you'd still have to make a convincing werewolf.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that is. Well, I mean, that is. It would work. The original calendar was designed around holidays too, so each one of the stories like had something to do with the holiday from that month, which is kind of a cool idea.
Yeah, and I mean, that's my 2 cents about how you could remake Silver Bullet / Cycle of the Werewolf for a modern day audience.
Yeah, I kind of like it. I kind of like that idea.
With that, we're gonna rate the film now. Normally we rate the films from 1 to 5, 1 being the very low spectrum of being bad to 5 stars as being really, really excellent. Where on the spectrum do you put this film? Cycle of the Werewolf, Silver Bullet.
Yes, Silver Bullet. I'm gonna put it at a 4 for me. I think that's just because of when I saw it and the context of it. I do like the performances. I do like the characters and the way that they bring everything together, even though like it may not be as exciting as people might be wanting from a werewolf film, but I do like the slow build of the werewolf in it.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. I'll put it 3.5 star, mostly because I appreciate this film more now than I did when I was a kid. Like I said, I'd forgotten so much of it in the years since I hadn't seen it, and it's a much smarter film than I would have given credit for. But I still, even since I have a love for certain werewolf films, I never thought was really convinced about the werewolf here. It's just lucky that it's performed by Everett McGill, who I love the People in the Stairs and have a greater appreciation for his talents. I think the cast is amazing in this film, and I think it's really a timeless film, unlike some of the other Stephen King adaptations. I will not say that Children of the Corn is a great movie. That movie has aged poorly.
Right. I used to really like that film, and then I think I saw it again recently, and I was like, I don't like it as much as I used to. But it just like it was this weird thing because I used to watch it a lot, and I thought it was great, but then it's just like
it's aged, and then there's been like 50 fucking sequels. It's the never-ending franchise, which is sad because there are so many other Stephen King films that could do with a sequel, except for fucking Children of the Corn.
I don't get it either. Like, how did that how to make like 10 sequels out of that? It's like
and 2 remakes. They've remade it twice now. It's like, dude, what?
Yeah.
And they get worse.
And it really does. How could it get worse? I think the second one was kind of fun, but it's like there's some weird things in the first one. Like when you're like, I don't remember exactly what they were. Last time I watched it, there was like some plot points that were like the decisions that the characters were making that just didn't make any sense. They were just making decisions to move the plot forward in some instances. It seemed like.
Well, one day, everyone, we will discuss Children of the Corn on the podcast. But until then, I haven't bothered to watch it in years. I've actually seen every one of the sequels, which is really crazy for me. Yes, I've seen them all.
Why don't you do that?
To put myself through the pain so no one else has to. Yeah. Watch a lot of sequels to a lot. I've seen all the Hellraisers too, no matter how bad they are. But the thing is, as a horror fan, I have a duty to myself to watch and support horror films, no matter how bad they are. I'm that guy. But you don't have
I've seen a lot of them. I actually bought like a set of them one time from Walmart, like a DVD set, and it had like a bunch of them in it. And I didn't even finish it, I don't think, because they got worse as they went on. I maybe made it through 3 of them or something. But
I got a box set of some of them too. We probably have the same box set.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'd already seen the first one and second one, which from what I hadn't seen the second one in a long time. I saw it in the theater. But I like the second one. I do. I only have I have a VHS copy of the second one still, so I could watch it.
Oh my God. All right. Oh my God. That is all of our conversation for Silver Bullet. I want to thank you all for joining us on this month of Stephen King movies. We hope that you've enjoyed this conversation on Silver Bullet and that you will sit back and relax and listen to some of the other podcast episodes that we have on other Stephen King related movies. Also, check out some of our other episodes from the past year or so. We've done a lot of great movies and tackled some other Stephen King films along the way because there's a lot of them. We wish you the best. And thank you for joining us. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, do that thing you do to your favorite podcast, because you can find this on your favorite podcast apps, Spotify, and YouTube. From all of us at Something Wicked Entertainment, we want to wish you have a pleasant day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.